Then to her own sad heart muttered the queen, "Will the child kill me?" With her innocent talk, but openly she answered, "Must not I, of this false traitor, have displaced his lord, grieve with the common grief of all the realm? Yea," said the maid, "this is all woman's grief, that she is woman, whose disloyal life hath wrought confusion in the Table Round, which good King Arthur founded years ago, with signs and miracles and wonders, there at Camelot, ere the coming of the Queen." Then thought the Queen within herself again, "Will the child kill me with her foolish prate?" But openly she spake, and said to her, "O little maid, shut in by nunnery walls, what canst thou know of kings and tables round, or what of signs and wonders but the signs and simple miracles of nunnery?" To whom the little novice garrulously, "Yea, but I know the land was full of signs and wonders ere the coming of the Queen. So said my father, and himself was knight of the great table at the founding of it, and rode thereto from Lyonnesse. And he said that as he rode, an hour or maybe twain after the sunset down the coast, he heard strange music, and he paused, and turning there, all down the lonely coast of Lyonnesse, each with a beacon star upon his head, and with a wild sea light about his feet, he saw them, headland after headland plain, far into the rich heart of the west, and in the light the white mermaid swam, and strong man-breasted things stood from the sea, and sent a deep sea voice through all the land, to which the little elves of chasm and cleft made answer, sounding like a distant horn. So said my father, yea, and furthermore, next morning, while he passed the dim-lit woods, himself beheld three spirits mad with joy come dashing down on a tall wayside flower that shook beneath them as the thistle shakes when three gray linnets wrangle for the seed. And still at evenings, on before his horse, the flickering fairy circle wheeled and broke, flying and linked again, and wheeled and broke, flying, for all the land was full of life. And when at last he came to Camelot, a wreath of airy dancers, hand in hand, swung round the lighted lantern of the hall. And in the hall itself, such a feast as never man had dreamed, for every knight had whatsoever meat he longed for served by hands unseen, and even as he said, down in the cellars, merry bloated things shouldered the spigot, straddling on the butts, while the wine ran. So glad were spirits and men before the coming of the sinful queen. Then spake the queen, and somewhat bitterly, were they so glad, ill prophets were they all, spirits and men. Could none of them foresee, not even thy wise father with his signs and wonders, what has fallen upon the realm? To whom the novice garrulously again, yea, one a bard of whom my father said, full many a noble war song had he sung, even in the presence of an enemy's fleet, between the steep cliff and the coming wave, and many a mystic lay of life and death had chanted on the smoky mountain tops, when round him bent the spirits of the hills, with all their dewy hair blown back like flame. So said my father, And that night the bard sang Arthur's glorious wars, and sang the king as well nigh more than man, and railed at those who called him the false son of Gorlos. For there was no man knew from whence he came. But after tempest, when the long wave broke, all down the thundering shores of Bud and Boss, there came a day as still as heaven, and then they found a naked child upon the sands of dark Tintagel by the Cornish sea. And that was Arthur, and they fostered him, till he by miracle was a proven king, and that his grave should be a mystery from all men like his birth. And could he find a woman in her womanhood as great as he was in his manhood? Then he sang the twain together, well might change the world. But even in the middle of his song he faltered, and his hand fell from the harp, and pale he turned and reeled, and would have fallen. But that they stayed him up, nor would he tell his vision, but what doubt he foresaw, this evil work of Lancelot and the queen. Then thought the queen, lo, they have set her on, our simple seeming Epis and her nuns, to play upon me, and bowed her head, nor spake, whereat the novice crying with clasped hands, shame on her own garrulously said, the good nuns would check her gadding tongue. Full often, and sweet lady, if I seem to vex an ear too sad to listen to me, unmannerly with prattling and the tales, which my good father told me, check me too, nor let me shame my father's memory, one of the noblest manners, though himself would say Sir Lancelot had the noblest, and he died, killed in a tilt, come next 5 summers back, and left me but of others who remain, and of the 2 first famed for courtesy, and pray you check me if I ask amiss, but pray you which had noblest, while you moved, among them Lancelot, or our lord the king? Then the pale queen looked up and answered her, Sir Lancelot, as became a noble knight, was gracious to all ladies, and the same, in open battle, are the tilting field, forbore his own adventure, and the king in open battle are the tilting field, forbore his own advantage, and these 2 were the most nobly mannered men of all, for manners are not idle, but the fruit of loyal nature and of noble mind. Yea, said the maid, be manners such fair fruit, then Lancelot's needs must be 1,000-fold, less noble being as all rumor runs, the most disloyal friend in all the world. To which a mournful answer made the queen, O closed about by narrowing nunnery walls, what knowest thou of the world, and all its lights, and shadows, all the wealth, and all the woe? If ever Lancelot, that most noble knight, were for 1 hour less noble than himself, pray for him that he scape the doom of fire, and weep for her that drew him to his doom. Yea, said the little novice, I pray for both. But I should all as soon believe that his, Sir Lancelot's, were as noble as the king's. As I could think, sweet lady, yours would be. Such as they are, were you the sinful queen. So she, like many another babbler, hurt, whom she would soothe, and harmed where she would heal. For here a sudden flush of wrathful heat fired all the pale face of the queen, who cried, such as thou art, be never maiden more, for ever thou their tool, set on to plague, and play upon, and harry me, petty spy and traitress. When that storm of anger brake from Guinevere, aghast the maiden rose, white as her veil, and stood before the queen, as tremulously as foam upon the beach stands in a wind. ready to break and fly. And when the queen had added, "Get thee hence," fled frightened, then that other left alone, sighed and began to gather heart again, saying in herself, the simple fearful child meant nothing but my own too fearful guilt, simpler than any child betrays itself. But help me, heaven, for surely I repent. For what is truly repentance but in thought, not even in inmost thought, to think again the sins that made the past so pleasant to us. And I have sworn never to see him more. To see him more. And even in saying this, her memory, from old habit of mind, went slipping back upon the golden days in which she saw him first when Lancelot came, reputed to the best knight and goodliest man, ambassador to lead her to his lord Arthur, and led her forth, and far ahead of his and her retinue moving, they, wrapped in sweet talk, are lively, all on love, and sport and tilts and pleasure, for the time was Maytime, and as yet no sin was dreamed. Now, if it's a sin, it's a mistake. And how to deal with the mistakes is to try to realize that it can be elsewhere. If you think that that's the only place to get it, how are you supposed to keep from sinning? Well, there's possibility, but, Road under groves that looked a paradise, a blossom over sheets of hyacinth that seemed the heavens unbreaking through the earth, and on from hill to hill, and every day beheld at noon in some delicious dale the silk pavilions of King Arthur raised for brief repast or afternoon repose, by courtiers gone before and on again, till yet once more ere set of sun they saw the dragon of the great Pendragon ship that crowned the state pavilion of the king, blaze by the rushing brook or silent well. But when the queen, immersed in such a trance, and moving through the past unconsciously, came to that point where first she saw the king ride toward her from the city side to find, her journey done, glanced at him, though him cold, high self-contained and passionless, not like him, not like my Lancelot. While she brooded thus, and grew half guilty in her thoughts again, there rode an armed warrior to the doors. A murmuring whisper through the nunnery ran, then on a sudden cry, the king. She sat stiff-stricken, listening, when armed feet through the long gallery from the outer doors rang coming. Prone from off her seat she fell, and grovelled with her face against the floor. There with her milk-white arms and shadowy hair she made her face a darkness from the king, and in the darkness heard his armed feet pause by her. Then came silence, then a voice, monotonous and hollow like a ghost's, denouncing judgment, but, though changed, the king's. Liest thou here so low, the child of one I honored, happy, dead before thy shame? Well is it that no child is born of thee. The children born of thee are sword and fire, red ruin, and the breaking up of laws, the craft of kindred, and the godless hosts of heathens swarming over the northern sea. Often, even if it's the wrong religion, some people are more in touch spiritually than what is supposed to be the right religion. Whom I, while yet Sir Lancelot, my right arm, the mightiest of my knights, abode with me, have everywhere about this land of Christ, in 12 great battles, ruining, overthrown. Doesn't it say that his kingdom is not of this world? And, the Bible, doesn't the Bible say that his kingdom is not of this world? And knowest thou now, from whence I come, from him, from waging bitter war with him and he, that did not shun to smite me in worst way. Had ye that grace of courtesy in him left, he spared to lift his hand against the king, who made him knight, but many a knight was slain, and many more and all his keith and kin, clave to him at abode in his own land, and many more, when Modred raised revolt, forgetful of their troth and fealty, clave to Modred, and a remnant stays with me. And of this remnant will I leave apart true men who love me still, for whom I live, to guard thee in the wild hour coming on. Lest but a hair of this low head be harmed, fear not, thou shalt be guarded till my death. Howbeit I know, if ancient prophecies have erred not, that I march to meet my doom, thou hast not made my life so sweet to me, that I, the king, should greatly care to live. For thou hast spoilt the purpose of my life. Bear with me for the last time, while I show, even for thy sake, the sin which thou hast sinned. For when the Roman left us, and their law relaxed its hold upon us, and the ways were filled with rapine, here and there a deed of prowess done redressed a random wrong. But I was first of all the kings who drew knighthood errant of this realm and all the realms together under me their head. In that fair order of my table round, a glorious company, the flower of men, to serve as a model for the mighty world, and be the fair beginning of a time. Now, because that backs up my earlier comment. The thing about I didn't say it out loud. When people believe that they're preemptively forgiven and they can get away with things in this world, certain crimes are more common. Now, if they had no spirituality whatsoever, we find that it's even more common than that. But so things are probably worse under Christendom than they were under the so-called pagan and heathen religions. The fair table round, the glorious company, the flower of men to serve as model for a mighty world, and be the fair beginning of the time. I made them lay their hands in mine and swear to reverence the king as if he were their conscience and their consciousness as their king. To break, sometimes I go into automatic mode and say a word and I get it a little bit wrong, but it still fits into things, so I don't fit it, but I'm going to restate that. Their consciousness and their conscious as their king. To break the heathen and uphold the Christ, to rule abroad redressing human wrongs, to speak no slander, no, nor listen to it, to honor his own word as if his God's, to lead sweet lives in purest chastity, to love one maiden only, cleave to her, and worship her by years of noble deeds, until they won her, for indeed I knew of no more subtle master under heaven than is the maiden passion for a maid, not only to keep down the base in man, but to teach high thought, and amiable words, and courtliness, and the desire of fame, and love of truth, and all that makes a man. Now, outside of Christianity, you generally have the thought that chastity is something that can be maintained in marriage. It's not something that ends once you start getting together with your wife. And all this throve before I wedded thee, my purpose and rejoicing in my joy. Then came my shameful sin with Lancelot. Then came the sin of Tristram and Iseult. Then others, following these, my mightiest knights, and drawing foul ensample from fair names, sinned also, till the loathsome opposite of all my heart had destined did obtain. And all through thee, so that this life of mine I guard as God's high gift from scathe and wrong, not greatly care to lose, but rather think how sad it were for Arthur, should he live, to sit once more within this lonely hall, and miss the wonted number of my nights, and miss to hear high talk of noble deeds, as in the golden days before thy sin. For which of us, who might be left, could speak of the pure heart, nor seem to glance at thee, and in thy bowers of Camelot or of Usk, thy shadow still would glide from room to room, and I should evermore be vexed with thee. In hanging robe or vacant ornament, or ghostly footfall echoing on the stair. For think not thou wouldst not love thy Lord hast wholly lost his love for thee. I am not made of so slight elements, yet must I leave thee, woman, to thy shame. I hold that man the worst of public foes, who either for his own or children's sake, to save his blood from scandal, lets the wife, whom he knows false, abide and rule the house, for being through his cowardice allowed her station taken everywhere for pure. She, likes a new disease, unknown to men, creeps, no precaution used, among the crowd, makes wicked lightnings of her eyes and saps the fealty of our friends, and stirs the pulse with devil's leaps, and poisons half the young. Worst of the worst, were that man he that reigns, better the king's waste, hearth, an aching heart, than thou, reseated in thy place of light, the mockery of my people, and their bane. He paused, and in the pause she crept an inch nearer and laid her hands about his feet. Far off a solitary trumpet blew. Then waiting by the doors, the war horse not neighed. At a friend's voice, and he spake again, Yet think not that I come to urge thy crimes. I did not come to curse thee, Guinevere, I whose vast pity almost makes me die to see thee, laying there thy golden head, my pride and happier summers at my feet, the wrath which forced my thoughts on that fierce law, the doom of treason and the flaming death. When first I learnt thee hidden here is past, the pang which while I weighed thy heart with one, too wholly true to dream untruth in thee, made my tears burn, is also past in part, and all is past, the sin is sinned, and lo, I forgive thee, as eternal God forgives. Do thou for thine own soul the rest. But how to take last leave of all I loved, of, golden hair, with which I used to play, not knowing, imperial molded form, and beauty such as never woman wore, until it became a kingdom's curse with thee. I cannot touch thy lips, they are not mine, but Lancelot's, nay, they never were the king's. I cannot take thy hand, that, too, is flesh, and in the flesh thou hast sinned, and mine own flesh, here looking down on thine polluted cries, I loathe thee, yet not less, O Guinevere, for I was ever virgin, save for thee. My love through flesh hath wrought into my life, so far that my doom is, I love thee still. Let no man dream but that I love thee still, perchance, and so thou purify thy soul, and so thou lean on our fair Father Christ. It's important to be honest about who your real father is. But I've talked to my spring equinox ceremony, the most recent one. The explanation of the real usage of these father-child, language, and gave examples. Hereafter, in that world where all are pure, we too may meet before high God, and thou wilt spring to me and claim me thine, and know I am thine husband, not a smaller soul, nor Lancelot, nor another. Leave me that. I charge thee, my last hope. Now must I hence. Through the thick night I hear the trumpet blow, and they summon me, their king, to lead mine hosts. far down to that great battle in the west, where I must strike against the man they call my sister's son, no kin of mine, who leagues with lords of the white horse, heathen and knights, traitors, and strike him dead, and meet myself, death, or I know not what mysterious doom. And thou remaining here wilt learn the event, but hither shall I never come again, never lie by thy side, see thee no more, farewell. And while she grovelled at his feet, she felt the king's breath wander o'er her neck, and in the darkness o'er her fallen head, perceived the waving of his hands that blessed. Then listening till those armed steps were gone, rose the pale queen, and in her anguish found the casement peradventure, so she thought, if I might see his face, and not be seen. And lo, he sat on horseback at the door, and near him the sad nuns with each a light stood, and he gave them charge about the queen, to guard and foster her for evermore. And while he spake to these, his helm was lowered, to which for crest the golden dragon clung, a Britain, so she did not see the face, which then was as an angel's, but she saw, wet with the mists, and smitten by the lights, the dragon of the great Pendragon ship, blaze, making all the night a steam of fire. And even then he turned, and more the moony vapor rolling round the king, who seemed the phantom of a giant in it, and wound him fold by fold, and made him grey and greyer till himself became as mist before her, moving ghost-like to his doom. Then she stretched out her arms and cried aloud, "O Arthur!" There her voice breaks suddenly. Then, as a stream that spouting from a cliff fails in mid-air, but gathering at the base, remakes itself and flashes down the vale, went on in passionate utterance, "Gone, my lord, gone through my sin to slay and to be slain, and he forgave me, and I could not speak farewell. I should have answered his farewell, his mercy choked me. Gone, my lord the king, my own true lord, how dare I call him mine? The shadow of another cleaves to me, and makes me one polluted. He, the king, called me polluted. Shall I kill myself? What help in that? I cannot kill my sin." Yeah, it just adds to it. "If soul be soul, nor can I kill my shame. No, nor by living can I live it down." Well, there's hope for atonement, or at least trying, "The days will grow to weeks, the weeks to months. The months will add themselves and make the years will roll into the centuries, and mine will ever be a name of scorn. I must not dwell on that defeat of fame. Let the world be, that is but of the world. What else, what hope? I think there was a hope, except he mocked me when he spake of hope. His hope he called it, but he never mocks. For mockery is the fume of little hearts, and blessed be the king who hath forgiven my wickedness to him, and left me hope, that in mine own heart I can live down sin, and be his mate hereafter in the heavens, before high God, O great and gentle Lord, who wast, as is, the conscience of a saint. Among his warring senses to thy knights, to whom my false voluptuous pride, that took full easily all impressions from below, would not look up or half despise the height to which I would not or I could not climb. I thought I could not breathe in that fine air, that pure severity of perfect light. I yearned for warmth and color, which I found in Lancelot. Now I see thee what thou art. Thou art the highest and most human too, not Lancelot nor another. Is there none will tell the king I love him, though so late? Now ere he goes to the great battle, none. Myself must tell him in that pure life. But now it were too daring. Ah, my God, what might I not have made of thy fair world? Had I but loved thy highest creature here, it was my duty to have loved the highest. It surely was my profit had I known. It would have been my pleasure had I seen it. We needs must love the highest when we see it, not Lancelot nor another. Here her hand grasped and made her veil her eyes. She looked and saw the novice weeping suppliant, and said to her, Yea, little maid, for I am not forgiven. Then glancing up and beheld the holy nuns, all round her weeping, and her heart was loosed within her, and she wept with these, and said, Ye know me then, that wicked one who broke the vast design and purpose of the king. O shut me round with narrowing nunnery walls, meek maidens, from the voices crying, Shame! I must not scorn myself, he loves me still. Let no one dream but that he loves me still. So let me, if you do not shudder at me, nor shun to call me sister, dwell with you, wear black and white, and be a nun like you, fast with your fasts, not feasting with your feasts, grieve with your griefs, not grieving at your joys, but not rejoicing, mingle with your rites, pray and be prayed for, lie before your shrines, do each low office of your holy house, walk your dim cloister and distribute dole to poor sick people, richer in his eyes, who ransomed us, and haler too than I, and treat their loathsome hurts and heal mine own, so wear out in alms deed and in prayer the sombre close of that voluptuous day, which wrought the ruin of my lord the king. She said, they took her to themselves, and she, still hoping, fearing, is it yet too late, dwelt with them, till in time their abbess died. Then she, for her good deeds and her pure life, and for the power of administration in her, and likewise for the high rank that she had borne, was chosen abbess. There an abbess lived for 3 brief years, and there an abbess passed, to where beyond these voices there is peace. Now, in truth, the real honor, the real dignity is only gained or lost for the individual. But there's, collective efforts. I'm not saying that that's not the case, but don't go doing no honor killings now.